Hello, good day. Angus McMahon here with another story. This is a straight transcript of a dream I had a few years ago. Just woke up, crawled to the iMac, and started typing. Admiral Karen came in to see what I was up to. I gave her my best Boris Karloff voice. Arrgh! And she left me alone until I got it all down and hit post. This is the dream in which death takes me to lunch. We meet on the sidewalk outside of a fancy restaurant. We are dressed in black tie, tails, and top hats. Death looks and speaks like John Gielgud in the movie Arthur. He makes a rattling noise as he walks. We bow to each other, the door opens, and Death waves me in ahead of him. "You go first," he says with a toothy grin that is a little too wide. Pol Pot is the doorman. Typhoid Mary is the hostess. Stalin is our waiter. Hitler is the chef. Pope Alexander VI says a blessing over our table. We are the only diners, although vague, flickering shadows are constantly appearing and disappearing at all of the tables. Sumptuous food immediately appears on our plates. Vegetarian, of course, because of Adolf. And we dig it. Death tells of all the ways that he has visited with mankind throughout the centuries. Animals killed us humans first, then the weather, and then we got good at killing each other. Death roamed the earth then, spreading diseases from place to place, person to person. He brought smallpox to the Americas, and then, just to be fair, exported syphilis to Europe and Asia. From the Dark Ages to Victoria's age, dying was a relief. Death was welcome and had his own cult. The end of one's life was deliverance, a release into what people believed was going to be a better place. At that thought, my lunch companion laughed so hard that he had to use his silk napkin to daub the crimson tears from his sunken eyes. Death's job was on the decline, though, after World War I, when we humans discovered really super efficient ways to annihilate each other, and troop transport meant that he never even had to leave his office, while the restless microbes spread all over the globe at speeds and levels of mortality that boggled even his mind. But Christ, the backup of paperwork! And he rolled his eyes, which then kept rolling for a while. "Oh, please, eat. Do not for a second think that I'd be so melodramatic as to taint your food or drink here. Indeed, you humans are doing a far better job at that than I ever could have wished for. The Almighty? Pray to him all you want, but the fact that he is a distracted... No! Speaking is so confusing for me. He is a diffracted fellow. Checks his voicemail from time to time, but rarely, if ever, does he pick up and answer the line, no matter how loudly it rings. Mind if I smoke? Is death God? No. I am a natural process. The presence of deity is a privilege afforded to very few. I, on the other hand, am a necessity that has a chat with everyone, sooner or later. What is the purpose of this lunch today? The fact that death has been in decline for generations now. People are healthier, happier, and more successfully procreative now than they ever have been before. I am not welcome. Humans nowadays aren't only appalled by death, they are surprised by me. Which seems odd, doesn't it? And he laughed so hard that I thought I heard bones rattle. Science is working on retarding aging or stopping death in its tracks. For a while there was progress made. Vitamins were an amazing blow to my business of mortality. But now the best minds do not go into such purely scientific studies. Today, my good man, you are taking my chances for fun away. In the interest of profit, humans have unified all of the food and drink on the planet. One corn plant, one type of cow, one disease-resistant type of everything. Easier to control, to manage, to profit from, to depend on, for everything. All of your factory eggs are in one basket. But, he said, brandishing a long, beautiful, bony finger at me, by denying me the diverse pleasures of taking you one at a time, I see a future in which I will take you all at once. Once those eternally restless microbes crack the armor of that plant, that seed, that well, then catastrophic food failure will rain down upon all the fields of the world. And I, he said, crushing out a cigarette, I will simply be overwhelmed. And then, I fear, there shall be so little work for me that I shall be How do you say it in this quaint language of yours? Oh yes, I shall be laid off. And he tossed back the last of his wine and laughed until the table shook. But could do that to you? Who is Death's boss? God? No, no, dear boy, haven't you been listening? God is a collective abstraction, a collectivization of all the mankind's hopes and fears. God is a figurehead. Jesus, but you people like to universalize things. No, I'm afraid that my boss, as you say, or more accurately my supervisor, is a destiny far more personal than your quaint notions of monotheistic deity. The three who sign my paychecks work behind the scenes, out of the glare of the spotlights and camera, and don't bother praying to them either. He shot me a sideways glance from suddenly pupilless eyes. They don't even have a phone. Ah, here's my ride. And suddenly we're standing out on the sidewalk. At that moment, a gigantic gypsy wagon emerged out of the sudden purplish mist. 2 stories tall it stood, swaying back and forth on rusty springs. The outside was covered in animal skins, ancient weapons haphazardly tied in place, hubcaps, and bottles of alcohol tied up with cords. The bottles clanked together as if a million toasts were being saluted. The wooden walls of the wagon itself were covered by layers of old posters and peeling newspapers advertising the beginnings of wars, the end of research budgets, a chemical spill in India, another crusade, a circus tent fire in Connecticut. The purplish mist lingered. It smelled of putrefaction and cinnamon. It emanated from every seam of the vehicle, and it only reluctantly settled towards the ground, where little tendrils of it break away and scurry up the sidewalk, chasing small dogs, and causing all the weeds to brown and curl on contact. Candlelight flickered in the large side window of the wagon, but the glass was too beveled and crudely made to see clearly what was happening inside. I could make out 3 figures, though, all talking and laughing in a woman's voice that was simultaneously young, knowing, and ancient. No, 3 voices, each taking a role. I saw a wheel spinning, and I heard scissors snipping. The women's reflections were enormous with the candles behind them. They could have been 10 feet tall inside of that 2-story tall wagon, or they could have been tiny, even microscopic. I looked away and my gaze rose to the top of the gypsy wagon. Perched there in a wooden seat was my luncheon companion, who was looking at me and smiling the perpetual smile of one with no flesh. His superbly tailored tuxedo now gaped and hung about his shoulders, and his bony chest no longer rose and fell with breathing. "Thank you for a most enjoyable repast," he said, over the sound of the cackling inside the wagon. I smiled and removed my top hat. "Who paid the check?" I asked him. Death laughed and removed his own top hat. "Why, you, of course, dear boy. You all pay at the end. But," he added, settling his top hat back on top of his skull, and inclined his head to me slightly, "I left you a very large tip." He chuckled some more as he took the reins of an enormous dead mastodon that was hitched up to this juggernaut. One snap of the long, leathery reins, and the ancient beast came back to life and began lurching down the street, dragging the creaking, groaning gypsy wagon behind it. I called after Death, "See you later." Death did not turn, but instead spoke inside my mind. Or sooner. If you liked what you heard, please hit that thumbs up below. Don't forget to subscribe, and please click the bell icon so you'll know when I post the next story. If you'd like to support creative people like me for as little as $1 a month, I certainly wouldn't mind. Go to patreon.com and go exploring. A good first place to start is here. Until next time.